Hello, everyone. Okay, so we are continuing our series today on Power BI, and this one we're going to be talking about cleaning and modeling data. How do we make that data useful? Before we even get to our agenda, I want to preface that things are in flux. I don't know if you got that email yesterday, but Epicor has announced that it will not sell on-prem SQL or provide a support services for on-prem SQL moving forward. Hey, we still offer both. We can sell you the SQL license and we can support you on that. So no worries, we still got you. If you're a little bit concerned about that, don't worry, call us. But there's also the idea that SSRS is going to allegedly move to PBIRS, and this is by 2023. And they have not yet released SQL 2025. It's still in preview, and that will no longer come with an updated SSRS. There is some information on their website that, let me pull this up for you. Can everybody see that? Okay, yes. This is from Debbie Lyons, which is on the Microsoft.com website in their blog, that she's the director and product marketing for the Azure databases. But she's saying that PBIRS will be replacing SSRS. That it will be, here we go, hold on. If you want to keep using, you can use SSRS, but it will be retired essentially, and it will be replaced with PBIS. So here we go. Okay, so that she's saying that when SQL Server 2025 comes out, any customer with a paid SQL Server license will have access to PBIRS, which is essentially just a replacement for SSRS, allegedly. Once again, all of this is alleged because I don't have access to it yet. But the idea is that previously SSRS is just paginated report. It's all those canned reports you get with SSRS or with Epicor. So all of those are SSRS reports that you get that are canned and you can run through Epicor. I don't know what Epicor is going to do. I don't know if it's moving to this new PBIRS, what it's going to do. Nobody really knows. But if they do, it all becomes integrated and easy to use. Then these dashboards, as well as the paginated reports, should be able to be shared within a company behind a firewall. So this presentation and next presentation, we're going to be talking about sharing and support. We're going to be talking about modeling, but just keep in mind that things are going to be changing and we don't know the ins and outs of all of that. So if you are going to create a big Power BI project, I would likely wait till they release SQL 2025. So you know a little bit more, so that the PBIRS is out. And if you get the SQL 2025, you have the license for that. It may behoove you to just wait a little bit and see how things shake out. So everything in here, just keep in mind, changes are coming. So today we're just going to be talking about best practices for choosing the correct data tool, cleaning the data, and modeling the data. Okay, so let's talk about what data tool that you're going to choose. So Power BI is not as robust of like a row level data engine as SQL will be, or as Epicor, who hosts the data itself. SQL is made for complex calculations. It's made for data management. And while Power BI can be okay at that kind of stuff, taking it out of SQL and putting it into Power BI is a whole extra step. Maybe with PBIRS, that might be integrated and that won't be a problem. But for right now, it's not. So I would be careful in how much data you're looking to export for your project, and ask yourself what the right tool for that might be. It may be within Epicor, within an SSRS, within a SQL calculation or calculating that you have to do before you bring your data over. And that's just to keep you from having workbooks that take forever to load or won't load or corrupt easy or any of that kind of stuff. Also, it's important to know that data cannot be changed in Epicor from Power BI currently. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but currently you cannot. It is a read only. It is not a write. So I think one person once figured out how to do some small write through a great level of coding, but it's really not used for that. So there's no easy way to do that as far as I can see. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're choosing what to use as a Power BI dashboard and what to use as a within Epicor SSRS or a what to calculate in SQL. Power BI is best for insights and trending, meta-analysis, data visualizations, dynamic reporting. If you want to move from like an annual look to a monthly look really quickly and slicing that data real fast, it can be amazing for that. It also can be good for combining data from Epicor to other engines. So if you have things that are in like a Salesforce, or I don't know if you do stuff through QuickBooks, you can pull in data from QuickBooks and match it. As long as there are keys, unique keys that you can match data with, you could potentially combine data that way. And I did just like a quick example of a Power BI dashboard that I created just to kind of show you that for dynamic visualizations and slicing data quickly, I mean, it's just unmatched. Power BI is. It may not be great for a PDF report, but it would be really good if you want this quick slicer to kind of find solutions and do some data analytics on the fly or in meetings or things like that. I know that can be tools that are really invaluable. So let's talk about what data tool you use, what Power BI should not be used for, and this is because there's better formats currently for these options. So exception reporting, I wouldn't use Power BI for that. Dashboards are really a lot better for exception reporting because they can be checked daily within Epicor. Having it outside of Epicor can make it fumbly and you can't get to your data to change it directly. So having it just like as a dashboard within Epicor is probably a better idea. Have it checked daily. You can also put things in it that is writable so you can make sure some things are checked. KPI reports with a lot of different large data sets. You're going to have better performance in like a homepage widget, an application studio app, or SSRS currently. Once again, that's currently. Don't know about the future. We might have something changing in the future. Static, print ready, or PDF ready handouts or adjustments. So I've found that Power BI is not always super print ready. It is hard to get all of those visualizations into the correct formatting for printing. They do have Power BI paginated reports, which I have heard from a lot of people are almost exactly like SSRS reports, and to a point where people have changed over their SSRS to PBIRS, and none of their Epicor canned reports have corrupted. I read that in Epi Users. I don't know if that's true, once again, but it's what I read in Epi Users. So the PBIRS reports are essentially SSRS reports. It's no different. And I did read in the blog that they said they're making them completely compatible as well. Once again, don't know if they're going to do that, but they said that it's most likely going to be completely compatible. Anything you've created previously will not be lost. But that format, that paginated report, has exactly your printing output, and it's set up for printing better. So I'd say go anything that you want to hand out to people, you should have in a printable format and use a paginated report. It's also static since you're printing it, so stay with that format in SSRS, which can be pulled into PBRS in the future. Any alerts? Right now, SSRS email subscriptions and how it's integrated is just better than anything you can do in Power BI or in the web portal, except for maybe Teams. That might be better. But for right now, I would say SSRS and maybe wait for PBIRS. Daily data corrections, that is something that you should really, really do within updatable dashboards, or perhaps it's a process change. So if you're having a lot of data that needs to be corrected, you might want to just have an updatable dashboard. So it's an exception report. Here's the items that don't make sense from yesterday. And you have someone go through and check off all those items and correct them, make it updatable, make it changeable so that that person can directly change that information instead of it continually being entered correctly and you having to go outside to a Power BI dashboard and then back inside Epicor to change it. It's just too many steps, do it within. Large audience reporting, currently Power BI sharing is locked by license type because of the web portal and the way that sharing happens. Once again, with the PBIRS and the changes to 2025 SQL, this may not be as much of an issue. Right now it is, though. Also, high security reporting, I would still be careful taking it out of Epicor and out of SQL and putting it into Power BI and then a web portal. I would just wait a little bit to see how those changes are going to happen. And they said with PBIRS, it could be sharing within your organization behind your own firewall. So it may be, once again, a better option. Okay, so with the takeaway right now, I'd say is focus maybe more on learning Application Studio dashboards, BAQs, Epicor's native reporting tools, so SSRS, because any of that education, even if you're learning SSRS, it looks like PBIRS reports are not going to be much different. So any of that education you won't lose with all these changes and all this flux, and it can save you a lot of headaches with the current system that we have right now. All right, let's talk about cleaning data. So the best practice is high control. Anytime you're pulling out data and doing data pulls, you want high control, you want it very clean. And why is that? Debugging tools for data corruptions via Power BI are not as robust. It's true for SSRS as well. So it's a little better right now for SSRS than it is Power BI, but BAQs and SQL has much more specific information when there's an error than the Power BI desktop. It'll just corrupt an entire tile and your visualization won't show, and it'll say something like the data's not there. It's hard to find where that corruption came from. SSRS is a little bit the same, but it gives you a little bit more information on specifically which data is being corrupted. SQL is excellent. It will tell you line by line which line is corrupted, what field, what formula, and why often. BAQs will give you less than SQL, but it'll still give you a lot more than a Power BI, which it'll just corrupt. So also, it's important to keep the least number of columns and rows pulled into any third party. So since we're making copies into a new workbook, if you have a BAQ and SQL, don't do a select all. Don't select the entire table. Select the columns that you want only. You don't need every single table or every single field. There's going to be fields you don't need in every single table. So like employee basic, you think it's a basic table. There's actually a ton of fields on there that are likely not populated, not utilized, that you don't want to bring over and just take up space that you don't need it to take up execution time you don't want to take up. So always filter early and often. So even with employee basic, you can have an active employees filter. You really only need employee number, name, and company columns. You don't need every single column from that, and you can add them later if you really want to. Name and order your data before your pull, just because everything's a little faster through SQL. All right, so when you're cleaning your data, calculated fields, I always calculate on the query if I can. I will calculate on the BAQ, I will calculate on the query, I will not calculate through a DAX formula if I don't have to. I've always found it's faster doing it through before the pull. Now, if you're doing direct query, and right now direct query I don't think is as robust as it might be moving to PBIS, because if we're not pulling data out of SQL and putting it into the report, it would make more sense if there's like a native connection, like there is SSRS, then you could just be pulling the relationships, and that all makes a lot more sense in a PBIS environment than in a web portal environment. But I'd say even then, it might be I would check which one's faster to calculate on. And the DAX formulas might not work on the workbook itself if it is a direct query. So calculate on the query, calculate on the BAQ. It's a lot cleaner. Okay, and then relationships. Let's talk about relationships, because I try and keep few relationships in my Power BI. So if it's a query where all I need is the output, I will do all the joining in my BAQ or in my SQL. I really only do joining for slicers and filters. But everything else I try, or like if I have multiple queries of row data that I need, then I'll do it. But I like to keep my joins before and have just the information coming in is the finalized information, not information that I then have to like chip away at in Power BI. Rename on the query is if you're going to rename headers, if you're going to rename fields and things like that, I would do it on the query before you pull in your data. That way, any corruption you'll see will be more visible and easy to be debug. So just make sure when you use your naming, give yourself a paper trail. Okay, cleaning data. So I'm sure you've all encountered if a visualization will no longer display. And it happens a lot. That's kind of the most common bug that comes in. So I would first check if it's a data issue or if it's a report issue. So there's two levels. There's the data, and the data can corrupt, and then there's the report, and the report level can corrupt. This is why it's great having the calculations at the data level, because then you can separately run that BAQ or that SQL to see, is there an error in running just the BAQ or SQL that's attached to that visualization? If there is, then you know it's a data corruption and it's not going to be a reporting. You can change it at the BAQ level, you can change it at the SQL level, and it should flow through and be correct then at the report level. If it's not a data corruption, then it's a report corruption. So that's helpful. Then you know your data is clean. It's just something within the report is not happy. Sometimes it just corrupts because it needs a data refresh. I've tried that before and everything's fine. So just press that refresh button and see if there's something where it just was expired and had a moment. Also, you can ask yourself, so because sometimes to get this data through, you have to save credentials, did your username or password change that's attached to that query? So when you pulled that in, when you added in credentials, was it a Windows username and password, and has that username and password expired? That's one of the first places to check. Another thing that commonly gets corrupted is promoted headers. So you'll see this in your source when you go and look at your data source. If some sources force promoted headers, and that can be like Excel, that one comes in with a promoted headers option and often forces it through. So promoted headers these are the names of my headers. These are exactly the names of my headers in this order. Always pull this in this order. If one of those sources names of the header changes, if the order changes, if there's added or removed row, it can sometimes corrupt. So just make sure those headers, they need to be correct. They will not auto change. Within any external change, you'll have to change them yourself. And you can do that just in the Power Query editor. Okay, also, do you have any formulas or relationships that reference columns corrupted or removed? So this is another one that happens that's big. If you have a column that is no longer there, but you have DAX formulas that are referencing it, it's going to get mad at you. So just anytime you make changes, always test, and make sure that doesn't come from that. And then the other thing too is a dashboard corrupted for a single user, a PC, or all. It's good to know if perhaps this person can't access this data. So perhaps someone is saying, hey, I can't see one of these graphs. It could be that they don't have the security rights that they need to be able to access that data. That's excellent. That's your row level security working. So if that's the case, make sure you check their security, make sure you see if it's just them or if you can see it yourself. Is it just their computer? Is it your computer? Whatever it might be, see where the corruption exists among users, among computers. All right, so let's talk about modeling data, and let's talk about that drill down and that specific like row level data. So if you're talking about creating drill downs, there's drill downs, drill ups, and drill throughs. And let's talk about if you need those or if you want those. A lot of people say they want detail, but sometimes the detail can be extensive in terms of what it will take up data-wise. It could be a simple thing that someone could have or not have and be okay with it, but it might slow your workbook down to just a horrible pace that nobody can use the workbook. So I say leave that row data to pull in till the end and see how much it slows down your report. And if it's really significant, gauge if that person actually wants that row level data or not. So do they need the labor data directly from that day? Do they need to know, the labor type, what job they were on, all that kind of stuff? Is it a need or is it a want? So I would conserve. Where possible, conserve. Try and stay meta as much as possible, but if you need to drill down, drill through, then you can bring in more data to just see what it does to your overall workbook. Slicers. So for slicers, and slicers are a big part. Okay, so you can see this. Slicers are going to be these guys. So it's going to be options that you choose. And then this one is a clear all button that I created from just an image that you can do a bookmark where there's just nothing chosen. But slicers are really, really great. They can slice all your data. You can have everything filtered by any item you want. Now, I have seen probably the most data issues with slicers, and it's because, here we go. It's because you want to have a distinct list. If you're going to make something as a slicer, you want a distinct list. Now, that's really if you have multiple queries. If you have a single query, your distinct list is self-contained, so you can use that query as the slicer. So if that query has customer or company or whatever it might be on it, you can use that as the distinct list. You don't have to add in like extra distinct lists. But if you have multiple different queries that you're bringing in that you need to link together and then filter using a slicer, I would have the slicer be the parent and both of those other queries be the children. So if you have company, I would just bring in company as a query itself, have it just with whatever companies you have, and then have that be the parent to your other queries. It's the cleanest. That way, you know that that distinct list is going to be complete and it's not going to have like any kind of misses in a date range or misses. There's going to be all companies there every time you choose it, regardless if that information exists in one of the queries and not the other. And that's really the biggest issue is if you had one query where that company just doesn't exist for that filtered data, then it's going to not include that company in the second query. So just distinct lists. So you can bring in the employee table and filter it down. You can bring in the company table and filter it down to just what you need. But that's the cleanest way to do slicers. Also, creating a date table, that's one slicer that people really love to use is the date parameters. And the Cal Auto table can be really great for that. So you can make a query within Power BI by just creating a new table, and you can use the Cal Auto formula within it, and it automatically generates a date table based on the minimum and maximum dates found in your model's existing data tables. So it'll look at all of your queries and find the min and max date and make those the range of its full dates. And you can go into modeling, create a table, and then enter this specific formula into the formula bar. If you don't want the month number, you don't have to add that. You know, this is just options. So you can have quarter, month number, those things. Click enter, and then you can use this as a main slicer for all dates.